In 1453, one city stood between Europe and total collapse. When its walls finally fell, an empire vanished forever. Constantinople was not just a capital. It was the last barrier holding back a complete shift in power. Constantinople was the most strategically important city of the medieval world. Positioned at the narrow Bosphorus Strait, it controlled the only sea passage between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Every major commercial route linking Asia, Eastern Europe, and the Mediterranean passed through or depended on access to the city. Whoever controlled Constantinople controlled trade, taxation, and movement across entire regions. For more than 1,000 years, the city had served as the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. Its massive defensive walls, layered fortifications, and protected harbor had resisted countless invasions. Armies that conquered vast territories elsewhere had failed repeatedly at its gates. The city became a symbol of endurance, legitimacy, and imperial continuity. By the 15th century, however, Constantinople stood isolated. Its empire had shrunk to little more than the city itself. Yet as long as it remained standing, it blocked Ottoman dominance and preserved a fragile balance of power between East and West. Sultan Mehmed II viewed Constantinople not as an obstacle, but as destiny. Ascending the Ottoman throne at a young age, he understood that conquering the city would transform his state into a true empire. Without Constantinople, Ottoman authority lacked legitimacy in the eyes of both rivals and subjects. Mehmed prepared methodically. He restructured his army, enforced discipline, and invested heavily in gunpowder technology. Massive cannons were constructed, capable of battering walls that had once been considered unbreakable. These weapons represented a turning point in warfare, where medieval defenses faced modern firepower. Diplomatically, Mehmed ensured that Constantinople would stand alone. European powers were divided and distracted. When the Ottoman army advanced, it did so with confidence that the moment history had resisted for centuries was finally approaching. Inside Constantinople, the defenders faced overwhelming odds. The city's garrison consisted of only a few thousand soldiers, including Byzantine troops and foreign volunteers, particularly Genoese mercenaries experienced in siege warfare. Command rested with Emperor Constantine XI, who understood that defeat would mean the end of his empire and his own life. Resources were critically limited. The population had declined sharply, leaving many districts partially abandoned. Repairs to the walls were improvised with salvaged materials, and every casualty weakened defenses that could not be replenished. Food supplies were carefully rationed, and disease spread through crowded areas. Despite this, the defenders did not surrender. They fought not with hope of rescue, but with determination to resist for as long as possible. Holding the city became an act of defiance rather than expectation of victory. The Ottoman siege began in April 1453. Artillery positions were established around the city, and massive cannons were brought forward to target the land walls. Each bombardment shook the ground, sending stone fragments into the air and testing defenses built centuries earlier. Naval forces sealed the city from the sea. Although the harbor chain blocked direct entry, Ottoman ships attempted to isolate Constantinople completely, preventing supplies from reaching the defenders. The psychological pressure was constant. Day and night, the city echoed with the sound of cannon fire and collapsing masonry. Repairs were made under darkness, only to be destroyed again at first light. The siege became a test of endurance, where time favored the attackers, and survival depended on every hour held. In late May, Mehmed ordered a final assault. The walls that had protected Constantinople for centuries were finally giving way. On the 29th of May, 1453, Ottoman forces breached the walls. After weeks of relentless pressure, defenders could no longer hold every position. Fighting erupted within the city as attackers poured through gaps created by artillery and mining operations. Emperor Constantine XI was last seen fighting near the walls, refusing to abandon his city. With his death, Byzantine resistance collapsed. The city that had survived for over a millennium fell within hours. The conquest marked the definitive end of the Byzantine Empire. Constantinople, once the heart of Eastern Rome, became an Ottoman capital. Its fall signaled a new era in world history. The fall of Constantinople reshaped the world. The Ottomans emerged as a dominant imperial power, controlling key trade routes and projecting influence across Europe, Asia, and North Africa. The city became Istanbul, a political and cultural center of a new empire. For Europe, the loss forced profound change. Scholars and refugees fled west, carrying ancient knowledge that would help fuel the Renaissance. Trade routes shifted, pushing exploration beyond traditional paths and accelerating global expansion. What had been a single siege became a dividing line between medieval and early modern history. The world that followed was fundamentally different from the one that came before. If you value factual, cinematic history that explores decisive battles, consider subscribing to Blackstone Battlecraft.